Welcome back to BSTT. It's Ben here, and today was the NBA trade deadline. So I'm going to give you all my opinions on the trades, and let's get right into it. So I'm just going over some of the most entertaining trades and my favorite ones of the day. So we're starting off with the biggest trade of the day, the James Harden Ben Simmons trade. So the 76ers received James Harden and Paul Millsap, and the Brooklyn Nets received Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, a 2022 first-round pick that's unprotected, and a 2027 protected pick in the first round. So looking at it right now, James Harden, he's not having his best year to say the least. He's averaging 22.5 points per game, 5.8 assists per game, and 7.4 rebounds per game, which are really good stats, but compared to some of his previous stats, it's not that good. Like, last year, he averaged north of 25 points per game, which was good, and a few years ago, he was averaging close to 30, around 29, 28, but the 2 years when he played with Dwight Howard, he averaged just about 25 points per game, 4.5 assists per game, and 5.5 rebounds per game, which was really good. And because he was playing with an elite center, and now he's playing with an even better center who could also score the ball in Joel Embiid. So I think his numbers will be up, and I think his assist numbers will also be up because although he's averaging 5.8 now, I think he could be averaging north of 7 assists, and I think with Embiid on his roster, it'll be alright. But now looking at the rest of the players in this trade, on the side going to Philly, we have Paul Millsap, who last year he had a solid season, but this year, I get that he wasn't playing that much in Brooklyn, but in the time he was playing, he was averaging 3.4 points per game, 5.8 rebounds per game, and 1.0 assists per game. And those are not Paul Millsap numbers, to say the least. I expected him coming into the year to average 10, but he didn't get any playing time in Brooklyn because they had so many better players in him. I think now in Philly, when he'll have actually some time to play, I think he might average north of 6 points per game, and I think he'll average 5 rebounds also and 2 assists. But looking at the other side of the trade, going to Brooklyn, the big piece here was Ben Simmons. But so last year he was averaging 14.3 points per game, 6.9 assists per game, and 7.2 rebounds per game. And those are not his best numbers. He had a drop-off year last year, but I think a new system will help him for the better. In this system, he's not the 2 option, he's a 3 option. So he could focus more on defense than actually shooting, because Kyrie and KD will have the ball the entire game, so he won't have to worry. And he'll just get the ball in the post, and he'll make all these defensive plays. So I think he's going to be averaging with the Nets for the rest of the year, 14 points per game, 8 assists per game, and 10 rebounds per game. While those are really good numbers and a big increase from last year, I could see it happening because he's playing with an all-star caliber player, or not all-star caliber players, Hall of Fame caliber players in KD and Kyrie. So, also, going to Brooklyn, we had Seth Curry, who I think might have been not the biggest piece in this trade, but the second biggest. He's currently averaging 15, 4, and 3.4, which are good, but I think he's going to finish the year averaging 17, 6, and 5. Because when he was playing with Embiid, he was doing fine, but I think him playing with 2 stars will revive his career. That's already being revisited. I think KD is going to help, and I also think Kyrie, because they're not only kind of mentors, but they're kind of the best players in the league. And when you play with the best players, you a lot of times tend to play better, although that wasn't the case for Harden, where his numbers dropped off. I don't really need to talk that much about Andre Drummond because he wasn't getting much playing time. I think he'll play solid, but he wasn't that big of a piece in this trade. And the two firsts, I feel terrible for the Nets. They gave up so many firsts last year to get Harden in the first place, and they basically wasted all of them, and they threw away their future because he's gone. And unless they win 3 titles with KD and Kyrie, maybe it was worth it, but it wasn't because they had him for just about a year because he got traded around this time last year at the deadline. So it was not worth it on the Nets' part. Another really big trade today, which was one of my favorite, was the KP going to the Wizards for Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans. So Porzingis is having just about his best year. He looked like New York KP, which I don't really like because I hate him as a Knicks fan. But he's averaging a solid 19.2, 7.7, and 2, which that's all-star caliber numbers. So he got traded for Spencer Dinwiddie, who's averaging just about 13, 5, and 5, and Davis Bertans, who's having a career worst year with just about 6 points per game and 2 assists. Davis Bertans, I'm going to talk about him first because he's the least important person in this trade. He's a good shooter, but besides that, he's not worth any of the money he makes. He's overpaid, and I think they only put him in this trade to match salaries with Porzingis. But Dinwiddie, I thought going into this year, him being on a worse team, he's going to be like Nets Dinwiddie from a few years ago, where he averaged 20. That's not been the case. He's been averaging solid numbers, 13. But I think playing with Luka, I think his points will go up to 15 points per game on the year because Luka averages 10 assists per game. He passes the ball a lot, and I think that's what he needs. But KP, in a second, I think that was not worth this. I think that was worth more. I think they could have gotten Montrez, who went to Charlotte. I think it should have been Montrez, Spencer Dinwiddie for KP. That would have been fair. But all in all, the Mavs lost that trade. But I'm going to just talk about something really quick. I don't get what the Wizards are doing at this point. They're trading away good players for an even better player, which that's a good motto and stuff like that, but their best player in Beal's hurt, who wasn't even having that good of a year. And then their best player this season in Montrezl Harrell, they traded him for 2 young players who I think Montrez should have had much more value than that. And yeah, the Nets or the Wizards are just like my Knicks. They have no clue what they're doing. Next, we had probably the most shocking trade to me, Derek White for Josh Richardson, Romeo Langford, and a first. So it shocked me because I had no clue the Spurs were planning on trading him. I thought he was going to be a Spur for a little while more because I thought he liked it there. Also, he was playing good. He was averaging 14.4, 5.6, and 3.5, which are by far his best numbers. And he was playing alongside DeJounte Murray and Jakob Poeltl and all these different good young players. And I thought they were going to make a run this year. I thought they were going to make it to the second round of conference finals. But looking at it like this, Josh Richardson's averaging 9.7, 1.5, and 2.8, which they're good numbers, but not that good. And then we have Romeo Langford, who's averaging 4.7, 2.4, and 0.4. He's not playing that good either. And then they gave up a top 4 protected pick. Oh, no, I don't think any of that's worth Derek White. I think White might be the not most underrated player, but like he's really underrated, and I don't hear enough people talking about him and what he's doing this year. He's playing great. I could have seen him going for I could have seen him be traded for a player like Montrez or someone like that, or someone like KP, or an actual good player, not an average role player, a scrub, and a top 4 protected pick. Because right now the Celtics have a playoff spot, or not a playoff spot. They have a play-in spot, so their pick's not going to be as good. But if you traded him to a team like, I don't know, Detroit, and you asked for a first, then you would have gotten an all-star, and you could have gotten Chet Holmgren or someone like that. But all in all, I think the Celtics won this trade. Next, we have another trade involving the Celtics, where the Celtics sent Dennis Schroeder, Bruno Fernando, and Enes Freedom to the Rockets for Daniel Tice. Dennis Schroeder is having a really good year for what he's getting paid. He's averaging 14.4 points per game, 4.2 assists, and 3.3 rebounds, which those are really good numbers. But I think the only reason the Celtics traded him was because they didn't want to pay him the money he deserves. Because if only he accepted the contract from the Lakers, though, then he would have been making like $24 million rather than the $6 he's making. But we also have Bruno Fernando in this trade, who I didn't even know was still in the league. He's not a good player, and I don't even know why they threw him in this trade. Maybe to match salary or something like that. And then we have Enes Freedom Cantor. Sorry, not even Cantor. Just Enes Freedom, who's having his worst year by far. Last year he was averaging around 11 points per game. This year he's averaging 3.7. And his other numbers aren't that good. 4.6 and 0.2. Just not good numbers all around from Enes. But Tice, the former Celtic, he played there part of last year and the year before, and I think the year before that. He's averaging 8.4 points per game, 5.0 rebounds, and 0.8 assists. Those are really solid numbers for someone that's going to play backup center for the Celtics. If he could average numbers that are slightly close to that, I think the Celtics will be really happy with this trade, especially knowing that they don't have to pay Dennis Schroeder $24 million or something like that. Now we have another trade. Oh yeah, right, there wasn't a trade. This is me as a Knicks fan just talking about how bad of a job Leon and Tibbs and Dolan, how bad of a job they did today. So, as a Knicks fan, I don't know if I want to see either be like good this year or tank, because halfway through we're like the 12th seed, but we had the assets to trade for a superstar. We could have traded for someone like Harden or like Sabonis, or who else got traded? KP, all these players, or CJ. But we didn't do that. We didn't trade for anyone, which was stupid. And the other thing we could have done is, if we're gonna tank and rebuild, why didn't we trade anyone? We could have traded like Fournier, or I hate to say it, Kemba, or Randall, or Burks, or Nerlens Noel. Any of these players, they're all solid players, but as a Knicks fan in the future, I don't really want to see any of them on our team. Plus, I want us, if we're not going to, be good the rest of the year, I want us to kind of play Obi more, play IQ more, Miles McBride, Sims, what's the name, Quentin Grimes. All of these young players, we don't play, but we start Alec Burks over him. Alec Burks is a good player, but we haven't been winning games recently. We got blown out to the Nuggets the other day. I think we've lost 8 or some. We've lost 8 or something like that out of the last 10 or 7. I hate to say it, we're not the team we were last year. And also, Cam Reddish, hate to say it, I don't think he's loving New York. You could tell by players' body languages. Like players like Taj Gibson, Alec Burks, not Fournier, RJ, players like them, Kemba, when they play, you see good body language from them. It looks like they like to play here. When Cam plays, you just don't see that from him. You see someone that's upset. And he's dropped like 2, 4, and 6 in the games he's played with us. He's not playing good. I also thought we'd give him like a starting role, which maybe he's upset about that, but he hasn't started. And it's all of this stuff. It's just leading to a bad year. So I think we just gotta tank the rest of the year, or just tank because we're 12 seed now, and I'd rather us get a good player like a top 10 pick than pick like around 15, something like that, and be a first round exit or a play-in exit. It's just not worth it as a Knicks fan, and I think not Thibodeau. I think he shouldn't get fired, but I think Leon Rose should be fired. And I think that Dolan should resign because he's a terrible owner. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it to the end of the video, please like and subscribe and have a nice day. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.